Can Sam Darnold bring the Minnesota Vikings to a Super Bowl? We really need to talk about this because the Vikings are 8-2. They're in a relatively weak NFC, and they've already shown that they can hang with the Detroit Lions. It's not as simple as, hey, this is a retool year. This year doesn't matter anymore. No, this is real. And Sam Darnold just played his best game of the season against the number 1 yardage defense in the National Football League. What does this mean? And what do we make of the Ed Ingram, Dalton Risner discussions? Let's talk about it here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. And Dave, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about you today. You know why?
Why?
We get to talk about the round bellies. That's your favorite thing. Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about some round bellies later in the show because I know that's what everybody wants. But we're going to talk about what's most important right off the top, and that is quarterback Sam Darnold. Look, Sam Darnold was phenomenal. There is no way to frame it otherwise. He should have had 4 touchdowns on the day. Easy. Should have had 4 touchdowns. You know why he didn't have 4 touchdowns? Bozo wide receiver 3 dropped it in the end zone. And that's an issue that we may have to address again in the offseason. Not necessarily with a lot of money, but with somebody different. Like, I'm out of breath. I've been real busy today. It's just been a problem spot. And it becomes more important when somebody else is out, which Jordan Addison was at the end of that game. Thankfully, only cramps. It looks like, he needs to drink that Gatorade, baby. Powerade ain't doing it for him. Got to drink that Gatorade. One of my favorite things is Florida State doesn't drink Gatorade. They drink Powerade because Gatorade was obviously created at the University of Florida, which I think is just petty and incredible. And also stupid because Gatorade's the best. But let's talk about Darnold. Dave, I thought he was incredible. If you have not seen it yet, I released about 4:30 on Monday a long, extensive film piece kind of talking about Sam Darnold and how he just maneuvered and how he really maximized things for the Minnesota Vikings. And Dave, how he played mistake-free football. Mistake-free football. You don't necessarily get that all the time from Sam Darnold. They got it on Sunday, and they got it in a huge way.
Hey, I'm going to credit Kevin O'Connell and the quarterback coaching group that can talk somebody out of their bad habits. He's done it twice now with obviously Kirk Cousins and now with Darnold so far, and then everybody in between when you got all the backups. It seems to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? It did. And if Pro Football Focus grades are your thing, Sam Darnold had a 90.8 grade overall, 90.4 when it came to throwing the football, 67.0 when it came to running the ball, and run blocking was a 60. They said his one run blocking snap was, average. But we don't really care about run blocking snaps for a guy like Sam Darnold. Now, if it was Dante Culpepper or Cam Newton, hey, you know what? Maybe we'll care. Maybe. But no, we're not going to care about Sam Darnold having a run blocking grade of anything. So I was really impressed. One of the big things, and we talked about this with his game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Dave, wasn't nearly as bad as people may have thought it was. It was fine. It was objectively fine. Like, the process.
It wasn't great.
No. the process in which he actually used, the process in which he tried to find receivers downfield, the process in which he threw the football, very good. Him throwing the football, he had a bad day. Something that we haven't talked about before, and I don't think it was mentioned at all. Going into the game, it was expected to be like 12-mile-an-hour winds. I wonder how much of that messed with him, whether it actually physically impacted the football a little bit, or he let it impact him mentally.
In Jacksonville?
Because when you know it's going to be heavy wind, like kickers will do this too. Sometimes you can overcompensate because you know you need to make some kind of adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious that, like, I don't know, maybe it just wasn't that windy on the field and it didn't impact him at all. But just kind of thinking about it and remembering that that was a part of the weather forecast that day, if it maybe could have done something. Now, it's not an excuse, but if the weather did end up kind of messing with him as far as how he approached his game, not necessarily that it moved the ball, but it's something where I know, like, just playing in the backyard, if it's windy, I will make adjustments because I think the wind is going to do this, and then I way overcompensate. So the fact that, like, normal people will do that and kickers do it all the time, maybe Darnold did too, and that played into why some of those inaccuracies were there. I'm opining. I am not saying that this is a for certain thing, but it's something to, like, kind of think about, because that can explain it. Because you know what? This game, tremendous. A complete 180. Not one ball, Dave. Not one in harm's way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in Jacksonville, he hurt his hand too. His throwing hand.
That is true.
Saw that on this game because he had a finger taped up funny.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew that and he'd been working with it. So that may have been part of it. Not judging the windage wrong or whatever could have been part. Who knows? But he did not. When it came to yesterday, he was playing well.
Mm-hmm. He was playing really well, and, you know, good for him. Yeah, he deserved to have that kind of game because he's obviously been working really hard. I am surprised that Darnold was given one turnover-worthy play. I didn't see one. Unless they're like, because it says it's under graded throws, but can you have a turnover-worthy play if you don't even throw the football?
The pitch back to Jones, maybe?
That wasn't turnover worthy because it was a good pitch. Let's see what the key says, because a pass that has a high percentage chance to be interception or a poor job of taking care of the ball and fumbling. Okay, so yes, that makes some sense because
he didn't. And the one play he got hit and dropped the ball, and yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes some sense. And this is why we look at these things, even if it's live on air. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Victory Monday.
And I want to say, Jose says a pinky. I thought it was a ring finger, but either way, fingers when you throw a football are highly important. Those last two fingers as to getting it on target and the spiral right and everything else.
Yeah. Last night I was watching the Grey Cup because Canadian football absolutely rocks. And Zach Collaros, the quarterback for Winnipeg, sliced the side of his index finger open, and they stitched him up, and it was numb for most of the second half, and he threw 4 interceptions. And because of those 4 interceptions, oh yeah, they were down 24-16 with like, I don't know, like 9 minutes left in the fourth. They lost 41-24.
Yeah, I was I was tracking the Grey Cup as I was doing a podcast, and Winnipeg was up early, and then it went all down. And that's what, 4 years in a row they've lost a Grey Cup, something like that.
They've been to 5 in a row. They won the first 2. They've lost the last 3. Okay. Last year's Grey Cup was really good with Montreal. They were up 24-21. Montreal got a touchdown with like a minute left, and Winnipeg could not come back and get it 2 years ago, Toronto beat them by blocking a last-second field goal. Like, the Grey Cup is one of my favorite things. These teams all play each other every year because there's only 9 of them. I don't know. I love Canadian football. It's just so much fun. But that's enough about the CFL. I could talk about that for a while. Shout out Ross Brendel if you ever watch this.
I want to give out a shout out to Gary. Thanks for joining us there, buddy. You missed the conversation about windage and possibly not adjusting for it or misadjusting for it, which you know personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious if that ended up being a factor. We're never going to get the answer unless Darnold says it or O'Connell says it in a presser unprompted, because at this point, you're not asking about that. And they didn't make any references to it on the broadcast, but so I'm probably just grasping at straws. But I'm trying to figure out why things were so bad from an execution standpoint when the process was good, because to me, that felt like an anomaly. So if it felt like an anomaly, well, then what's the reason for the anomaly? Is that something that's going to be able to replicate itself and repeat? Or is it something that you're never going to see again? Could not tell you. But it's something worth looking at, because we're talking about a potential Super Bowl run with Sam Darnold. That feels insane. But it's a realistic possibility. This team is 8-2. They're all like the underlying metrics say that they're a good football team. And yet they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. And you know what? That hasn't mattered because they keep digging themselves out of these holes. And when they get into a hole later on in the season against a really good team, guess what? They're going to know how to get out of it. They're going to know how to handle it. They're going to know how to prepare. They're going to know how to deal with it mentally. Like, this is a team that has kind of already been through it. They've kind of figured it out. Now, I'm not saying they're a perfect team, but we're going to talk about that, Aaron. Don't you worry. We're going to talk about running the football. I have thoughts, but we're going to have this team looks like they can be really, really good. Really
Second best in the NFC.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if he got banged up. I know.
No, I'd heard Metellus was hobbled during the game.
Okay.
I don't know.
I know he took an absolutely atrocious angle on that 98-yarder.
And he didn't.
The second he saw that film back, I bet he was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Because, man, that was brutal. It was brutal. But it also kind of shows like two plays can completely flip it, because if Metellus just takes a normal angle, that's incomplete. Or at the worst, it's like a 40-yard gain. If Jalen Naylor just, uses good hands, that's a touchdown. 14-point swing. 2 plays. 2 plays that could have easily went the other way because they ended in odd outcomes for what the Vikings are. Like, Metellus is really good. He doesn't take poor angles like that. And Naylor doesn't drop passes like that either. So, this felt like the Vikings were in firm control, even though you never really felt like it at the same time. It was kind of a weird dichotomy because you never felt like the Titans were really in it, but the Vikings never put the foot on the throat either.
Jose asked about, is Anzalone out for the season for the Detroit? From what I gather, he broke his arm, and he'll be out
back for the playoffs probably.
Late in the playoffs. Yeah, playoffs.
Well, if it's a broken forearm, that's probably what?
6
to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks is like the end of the regular season about. And if they end up getting the first round bye, they could play in the division. You could play in the divisional round.
Mm-hmm.
But you lose good players like that, it's going to impact you, especially a guy like Anzalone, who did so much for that defense as far as calling it, as far as he's their Blake Cashman. They're not a one-to-one as far as being identical players, but their leadership responsibilities, their intelligence, their versatility, he can do all those things too. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how they manage without him. Not saying they can't, but whenever you lose a good player, you have to figure out how to not fix it, not necessarily replicate what they're doing, but you have to adapt. And sometimes it's a group approach. Sometimes it's, hey, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is Jack Campbell ready for that? I don't know. Well, we'll find out. I'm very intrigued.
Linebackers that are capable. But Anzalone was their leader, yeah.
Capable is different from good. Like, we've seen bad linebacker play. Ivan Pace has given us bad linebacker play. Like, Ivan Pace is so good in his role. He just needs to stay in that role. Just stay in the role.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Norsevius, I think that's incorrect. He didn't drop the one in Jacksonville. He did not keep pedal to the metal on that route and did not catch it. Like, it wasn't a drop, but it was frustrating nonetheless. Let's continue talking about Darnold, because I thought the most impressive thing, Dave, wasn't just finding guys downfield, wasn't just being accurate with the football, wasn't just keeping it out of harm's way. Dave, the pocket management was superb. It was so good. He was stepping up in the pocket. He was waiting to get hit and firing down the field. He was like scrambling to get out of murky pockets. He wasn't just doing that little flippy-do and rolling out to the left. He was sliding through the B gap and then firing downfield to Justin Jefferson. So much awesome from Sam Darnold. Like, this is the normalish stuff that we see from Justin Herbert, from Joe Burrow, from Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying Darnold's on the level of those guys, but this is what you expect from a franchise quarterback, and he delivered it in droves for the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. I'm fired up. Like, this was great. I'm
if we
really
keep this
excited.
up, it's going to come down to week 18.
Mm-hmm. If the Vikings win out, I believe they win the division. There's other tiebreakers. There's a chance that even if the Vikings are one game back and they win, they still don't get the division because of said tiebreakers. Bless you, Odie.
I'd have to look at the tiebreakers.
Well, the Vikings would only have one division loss. Same with the Lions. Head-to-head is identical. Then I can't remember what the third one is.
Is it point differential?
I don't think it's point differential, and we'd lose that one.
Or conference? Oh, what do you mean we'd lose it? We only lost to them by 2 points. Game head-to-head point differential.
Oh, head-to-head. Oh, I thought you meant overall. Okay.
No.
NFL, to break tie within the division, head-to-head, best one-loss tie percentage of games within the division. Then it's common games. So it would be pretty much every game except 3. They play the Bills. We play the Jets. We play the Falcons. They play the Bucks, which they lost to the Bucks. So that actually helps them, because our loss outside of the Lions was the Rams, and the Lions beat the Rams. So that'll hurt us. And then the third one is the NFC East. We beat the Giants. They, I think, play the Eagles later this year. Mm-hmm. No, they played the Cowboys. They played the Cowboys. That was the game that Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. So, yeah, the common opponent thing is going to be a little tough for us because we lost to the Rams. They're going to have to lose an NFC game against the common opponent, and that could be a tough ask.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Motown, we play you guys in week 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a football game. That could be the NBC Sunday nighter.
All of week 18 is yet to be determined. Yes.
Mm-hmm. If the game doesn't mean anything, it'll probably be a noon game. There will be some games on Saturday, so this could be a Saturday game too. They've been doing is
the biggest draw, I think.
Well, not necessarily. Not if everything's already decided. Like,
you're right. If it's all decided.
in fairness, they have done no Sunday night game in the final week of the year if there's nothing to play for. They just don't have one, which I hate because I just want to watch more football, but hey, there's only so much you can do. Anyways, Darnold, Super Bowl quarterback, it's realistic. I'm not saying that Darnold is this tremendous talent. I'm not saying he's this elite level football player. You can't discount it anymore. Darnold is playing great. He's paired with an elite level defense. I love it.
He's got weapons. When they catch the football.
He does.
Got the best wide receiver in the league.
Mm-hmm.
By far.
He has the best wide. Yeah. And he has the top 5 tight end. Cam Robinson was really good on Sunday. I actually have not had a chance to look at what PFF thought of him. He thought his run blocking was bad. He whiffed a couple times. I will blatantly admit that. But the pass blocking was like an 87. 82.6. I think that accurately reflects what Robinson was. And one pressure allowed. He was credited with one of the sacks, and this is why I don't necessarily love how PFF does their pressures, because that sack was after like 4.5 seconds and Darnold kind of rolled into it. Or was it the Arden Key sack? That was even like 4 seconds. So it's like, I don't like crediting those guys with pressures when it gets that long. At a certain point, it's not your fault anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is where I like to pair stuff like this with pass block win rate, because I don't love that as a stat overall. Odie's
where can
walking on my
everybody
jeans.
Find pass block win rate?
ESPN.com/analytics. Seth Walder, ESPN's analytics guy, releases an article every single week talking about it. And he's got like the team rankings you can take a look at, and he's got like the top 20 individual rankings. Jonathan Grenard's been in the top 20 of pass rush win rate and top 10 of run stuff win rate all season long. Grenard's one of the best players in football.
And our defense yesterday did outstanding. Especially against the run.
Defense. I haven't got to the defensive film yet. I'm hoping I'm going to get a chance tonight. We'll see. But man, the offensive film is great. I had so much fun. Except the run game. Let's kind of shift over to the run game. Look, I get it's kind of become a meme where I become the Ed Ingram defender, but people are turning the corner. You know why? PFF didn't think Risner was very good, because that's where a lot of people get their offensive line information. We've talked about that, and it's something I've had a problem with, because I haven't thought that Ed Ingram's performance has been accurately represented by the grade so far this year. Risner was not very good. And I think I've kind of figured out why I don't like Risner so much. I hate his play style. I hate it. It is passive. It is weak. It is like, he can't move. He can't move guys, Dave. There were multiple plays. Like, look, Tavondre Sweat weighs like 365 pounds. And he's a big boy. He's not just big. He's strong. He's strong. He's thick. He's huge. But when you have the opportunity to get that inside shoulder and push him when he has momentum, that should be a relatively simplistic style block. I'm looking at Odie. He's sniffing my pants on the floor. I'm just hoping he doesn't pee on them. Oh, there we go. He's just trying to sit down. He's a good boy. Oh, you're just a good boy, Odie. Okay. Enough about my dog. Yeah, and there was one draw play where he didn't short set. He did a full-blown pass set. And guess what? By the time Akers had the ball, he's right in front of him. Like, it's just little things. He's not getting any push on these goal line runs. He's not getting any push in the run game, period. That's a problem. He had a slightly better, like 5 or 6 points, if you were going to go by PFF grades, better than Ed Ingram's overall pass blocking grade. It was like a 9-point disparity between their run blocking. I'm not willing to take that big of a run blocking dip. Ed Ingram can move guys. He's got his flaws. He is at best average. He's not great. I'm not talking about him like he's Trey Smith, like he's Quentin Nelson, like he's Zach Martin. But he's fine. Objectively fine. Risner is not a starting caliber guard. He's not. And I think the film bore that out this week. They tried it. O'Connell even mentioned, like, hey, I like some of the things. He kind of referenced that he thought he was rusty, which understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's going to get one more week. And I think the next possible time that the Minnesota Vikings could end up seeing Ed Ingram as a starter, barring injury, which I don't expect, would be the Cardinals in 2 weeks. I don't understand the move. I get Ed Ingram's got his flaws, but you were fine having just Ed Ingram in March.
Yep.
Like, you knew this is what you were getting into. A guy who was inconsistent, who had issues, who was really powerful, who could knock your block off, that was improving. And I mean, O-line's hard. It's not like we're talking about O-line being like an easy position to play. It's just...
And there's a lot of things they love about Ed. There's traits that he has that they think is special.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they've stuck on with him. Now, one of our previous shows, I saw a remark that, interior O-line is something we've been screaming about for years. Well, them selecting Ed a few years ago was an attempt to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
But it
was.
He has the potential. I think if he's coached right and if his attitude is right, and the one thing I question about Ed is his attitude on different plays and different things. But we'll find out. He's under contract for next year too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will find out. I'm really excited to kind of see how he ends up developing. Let me tell you, I don't think Ed Ingram's great. I don't think he's ever going to be, but I think he's a capable enough starting guard for what the Vikings do on offense to where I think you're fine with him for this year and maybe next year. With the cap space you have, maybe you take a big swing and try and get Trey Smith. I don't know if the Chiefs will let him walk because he's really, 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 really good.
And everybody else we targeted at the beginning of the season has signed extensions. Damn it.
Mm-hmm. If they pay Trey Smith market value, that would give them an interior offensive line worth nearly $60 million average annual value. That's a lot of money for 3 players. It's a lot. And I'm curious if that's a path that they would be willing to go down. Could not tell you. I don't know. But they should. But if he's available in free agency, I think the Vikings should definitely make him an offer. Maybe it's, hey, they'll give you 5 years at 21.5. We'll give you 3 years at 24. You know what I mean? Like, up the total amount per year just a little bit, add a couple void years to make the math work a little bit easier. And then, boom. So I want to address Michael's comment before we get a little bit more into the Risner stuff. Vikings are having a hard time assessing college talent. I think it's fine now. I think we beat them up too much about 2022 when we don't put enough context into what 2022 was. 2022 didn't have any of Kwesi's guys. 2022 didn't have any of Kwesi's systems. He was essentially trying to run Rick Spielman's draft with his mindset. He learned a lot from it. You can see the changes that he's made. And I think, to me, that's the biggest thing. He's evolved from that process. He's evolved from that draft. Does it stink that 2022 didn't deliver more impactful players? Yeah, absolutely it stinks. But it's not life or death. It's not that big of a deal because of how things have grown and evolved. He has the people in place that he wants and trusts. And that's what being a general manager is. You want somebody in the position who can listen to the right people and make the best decisions. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah listened to his coaching staff and pro scouts. This is probably the best free agent class the Minnesota Vikings have ever had. Jonathan Graney and Andrew Van Ginkel are getting legit talk for like defensive player of the year. Like, and it's not absurd. Blake Cashman's been arguably the most important player to this defense. Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore haven't been great, but they've been solid. They've been capable, which we needed at corner. Like, and then the Cam Robinson trade, like Kwesi's figured it out. He's figured out how to make really good decisions. And it's okay like from a long-term growth perspective for how Kwesi's going to continue to do his job, that 2022 stinks. He learned from it. He's not making those mistakes again. And that is what's most important.
And Phil says, how many Spielman drafts sucked? There were some that did, without a doubt.
2018 was bad. 2017 had Dalvin. Like there's a lot of interesting drafts by the Minnesota Vikings under Rick Spielman. He kind of lived for a while off of that 2015 draft where he got a capable starter in Trey Waynes, Eric Kendricks, Pro Bowler, Danielle Hunter, Pro Bowler, All Pro, Stephon Diggs, Pro Bowler, All Pro. You're not going to do that every single year, man. That was a special. Man just asked, what about the lack of picks? Do you like TJ Hawkinson? I like TJ Hawkinson. And if you know what, if Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy pan out, nobody's going to care about the lack of picks. It's not going to matter. It's a expensive bet that you made with Turner. And you could argue that the Vikings misread the market a little bit when they acquired that 23rd overall pick, but they wanted Drake May. Don't make no mistake about it. That was the guy they wanted. And I still think they were right in wanting him. He's been good in New England. Now, New England's record hasn't reflected that, but they have a lot of problems. It's going to take some time for that team to really kind of figure it out. They need a couple tackles. They need like one alpha receiver. They're going to be fine. But dang, man. Like, they made some calculated bets, and not having the picks stinks a little bit. But it's okay because they got TJ Hawkinson. They have JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. If those guys hit, none of this matters. That's the big thing. None of it matters. Just think of Dallas Turner as a second-round pick next year. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot. To kind of finalize my points about about Risner and Ingram. I had a lot of people ask me if I think I'm smarter than the coaching staff. No. But even people who aren't as smart those smart people can be right. I'm not going to just believe something because somebody tells me. I'm going to put in my own research. Like, I believe that Ed Ingram is the better start at right guard. If you disagree with me and you put in the time and effort to look at it, I respect that. I respect it wholeheartedly. But I think Ingram's the better guy. And it's not because I think the organization is dumb. It's not that I think I'm smarter than them. I definitely don't. But you come here because you like us and you like that we're honest all the time. I'm not going to just tell you that it was the right decision if I don't think it was.
And we'll get into draft stuff soon enough there, Phil.
Oh, yeah.
Tyler's already working on it. And if you haven't checked him out, go over to A to Z Sports, hit Minnesota, and you will find Tyler's work. And he is already starting to break down potential prospects. So it's there.
Yeah. I'm starting with injured players first because they're not going to give you anything else as far as a film perspective. So I can just watch the film and I'm good. Michael asks, everybody says we're your way. What do we just give up on this year? No, we don't give up. But I also think that this team is more than likely a year away because I think the holes and getting pressure on the interior of the defensive line and that cornerback are going to resonate in a major way when you play great teams. And that's why I think it's more that we're a year away. If Mekhi Blackman didn't get hurt, if Kyrie Jackson didn't tragically pass away, maybe we're in a different spot because they're young, they're athletic, they're feisty in man coverage. And I think that changes this defense a little bit more how Flores would prefer it. But let's also just be honest with ourselves. I think that this team can compete for a Super Bowl, and I also think next year is going to be better. And I think that's kind of where people are coming from there, Michael. Not necessarily that they shouldn't try this year. They absolutely should. They should go for it. That's why they traded for Cam Robinson. I wish they would have been able to get an impact defensive lineman, but they couldn't. And you know what? It's okay that they couldn't. It's not that they didn't try. I put out a lot of messages and was told that they were trying hard for corner and they were trying hard for defensive line.
And Freedom Thinker asked, do you think we should trade our first round back to get more picks?
Only if it makes sense.
I was about to say, it depends on the situation.
Trade.
Yeah.
Don't just trade to trade. If you have a guy that you love that you think is going to be a massive difference maker at your spot, take him. If you get offered a fantastic trade, take it. What's the best decision in the moment? What's the best decision for your franchise? Sometimes it's like the way the Vikings are right now, maybe it's best that they only have like 4 or 5 picks because they have a lot of young guys. They have undrafted free agents who technically will now count as draft picks. They have a guy like Michael Juergens who they think can be a starter down the line. They have Levi Drake Rodriguez who they really believe in. Jalen Redmond and Taki Taimani were really good finds for rotational pieces. At a certain point, if you have too many draft picks, you're going to have to either cut the draft pick or cut the other guy that you believe in. So you don't always want to have a ton of draft picks. And I think that's where Rick Spielman wanted to essentially get as many bites as the apple in round 7 as he could because those were guaranteed UDFAs. That's why we drafted a long snapper, because we wanted to make sure that we got him and didn't lose him in the UDFA process. That's my view on it. Kyle Hinton, the left tackle from Washburn in 2020, really athletic guy. They thought they could move him inside and maybe make him a center, and he was like a long-term project. He didn't work out. But you take those guys late in round 7 because you don't want to lose them as UDFAs. Like that's the process, right? So I think there's a delicate balance between having a lot of picks, not having a bunch of picks, and understanding where your team is at. How many open roster spots do we expect next year? Just think about that yourself. How many open roster spots? What, 10? So of those 10 spots, we already have a first, a third, and 2 fifths. So let's just say all of them make the team. On average, 2 to 3 UDFAs make the team. So let's pencil in 2. So you have 4 roster spots available right now. 4. Then you would have free agent signings. Let's say they bring in 6 guys. Well, now you have to cut 2. Like, it's hard. It's hard. And having a lot of picks is good for bites at the apple. But then when it comes to actually building the roster, it can be difficult. So don't necessarily view having a ton of picks as a great thing. It can be. It can also be a detriment to building your roster the way you really want it because of some of those factors. So just be careful. I'd like to have more than 4 picks, let me tell you. but I also don't think it's going to be the end of the world if we only have 4 picks. Make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Dave, I think that's our show. Do you have anything else before we go?
No, I think it's a wonderful victory Monday that we are experiencing. I hope it continues. Wednesday, we'll talk about the Bears and all their heartaches and see how that goes.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much for joining. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. And I'll say this. Everybody knows, especially if you're in Minnesota, Give to the Max Day is coming up. Please consider giving to a local rescue. We love Underdog here. They saved Eclair. They saved Cheddar. And we would appreciate if you would consider giving them a donation in their honor. But save dogs that can't save themselves. Don't support breeders. Support local rescues. You can get brand name dogs. You can get super popular breeds from rescues, even puppies. Underdog's got a couple Frenchie puppies right now. Frenchies are the most popular breed in the world. You can get great breeds and wonderful dogs from rescues. Please consider supporting them. And please consider supporting us with likes, subscriptions, hitting the ring the bell so you know when we're going live. And we appreciate all of you. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!